folks, here comes the caution.
Flag is dropped here at Daytona, and away we go for the first time. Nicholas Porcel, Sean.
Looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Doms, possibly a little bit of contact.
Now, as we've got three wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Go out here for Circuit Spa Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
Just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the one-on-one up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, Justin Sang.
They are ready to go. The lights are out, and away we go for the very first time here at Oklahoma International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons. Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the Alpha Touring Challenge here for season number 9. My name is Mason Highball with Team Goon Squad, bringing you the action here tonight, 1080p, 60 frames a second, race number 1, and we are here tonight at Virginia International Raceway. Folks, it is going to be a fantastic day of racing as drivers gear up for qualifying, currently getting themselves out on track for the 15 minutes that they are going to have to see what the best time that they can set is going to be here for themselves. A stiff and lengthy field that we have here today, folks. I am honestly shocked. The first time that we covered the Alpha Touring Challenge just a few months ago, it was also the first time that I had experienced fields of this size, and Alpha Touring Challenge not failing to deliver on that same exact kind of first race sort of vibes, if you will. The first race that we had for Season 8 was at Long Beach, and that was just incredible to see over 30 cars all crammed onto this very small, tight, and very technical street circuit. But here today we are at Virginia International Raceway, still a very technical track in its own right, and also the updated rescan of this track as well. iRacing previously having an older version of this track on the service. They recently went out, rescanned the track, and this is what we are racing on here today. So some things, if you are a racing veteran and you have been around Virginia International Raceway enough, or if you haven't been in a while and you are used to the older layout, there's some things that you might see or be looking for, such as the big tree that is at the end, towards the end of this track, I should say, if I remember correctly. Not necessarily the end, but needless to say, there are some changes that have been made to the track, and iRacing has done a great job of making sure that all of those changes have been represented accurately as they possibly can. But 2 minutes into qualifying here, we have yet to see a driver put in an official time, and that just goes to show just how long and technical that this track really is. So we'll take a second here just to ride on board for just a moment, along with Dan McFarlane here in the number 23 machine as he makes his way around the track. And we'll also talk for a little bit as well about last season, where we saw Micah Hendricks come away with the Alpha Drivers Championship. Logan McKenzie a close second, only, I believe, about 44 points separating Micah Hendricks and Logan McKenzie for that Alpha Championship, and Edward Gorman coming away in third place, only being separated by 4 points from Logan McKenzie. And speaking of the reigning champion, the first one to come across the timing tower with a 248.18, but that isn't the fastest time that has been set here. Francois Schink, the number 18 Audi, coming across the line with a 246.992. And some other exciting announcements as well for this season. The first of which being that there has been a couple different teams that have been added to this season. The first team of which being 4OGs, Complex Simworks also being another team, Podium Hunters White and Black, and also Team Seattle iRacing. So great to see a few other teams making their way here into the Alpha Touring Challenge and looking to compete and be a part of this absolutely incredible series. Again, the largest touring car series in North America on the iRacing service. So if you are looking for a place for touring cars, this is the place you want to be. One of the largest, actually the largest on the iRacing service in North America. So a great community of drivers, a very large, robust community with a lot of expertise and knowledge and a lot of great racing as well, among other things. But as the field starts to fill in here, we start to see 25 drivers on the left-hand side of our screens, folks, but we are not going to be able to fit them all onto one screen here. So throughout the race here, we're going to see the top 25, and then anyone beyond that, it's going to be a matter of having to click through them. So I unfortunately won't be able to show everyone at the same time, but we will do our best to get through the field as best as we can. And at this current moment, Francois Schink, 5 minutes into qualifying, still the fastest driver to beat with a 146.992. Just behind him, we have David Bauer in the 35 machine with 247.547 as his current time at the moment. And so speaking of all of the teams here in this season, we have We have 12 teams going into this season. 4 OGs, Breakfast for Dinner, Complex Simworks / Penguin RC Racing, Curb Your Enthusiasm Autosport, Podium Hunters White and Black, QZ Motorsports, Real Friends Racing, Seattle iRacing, Second Breakfast, Sim Racing Grid, and Yellow Flag Motorsports. So quite the lengthy list of teams that we have competing in season number 9 of the Alpha Touring Challenge. And what an absolutely incredible way to kick off race number 1 here at Virginia International Raceway. It is going to be an absolute spectacle, and frankly, if Season 8 is anything to go by, and for those of you that don't know and are just now tuning into this series, this is not the first time that we have been here for the Alpha Touring Challenge, and we have covered last season, season number 8, so a lot of the things that I will be referencing and mentioning will be from that last season. So if you haven't already, if you haven't caught any of the action from last season, go ahead and check that out. There are a lot of great races that has been produced from this series. Still watching along with Francois Schink here, just kind of randomly going around here, seeing what different drivers are doing, and you can already see on the left-hand side of your screen those times starting to close in ever closer to one another, and it is often, my words were not coming to me as quickly as I would like them to, but it is very often that we will see these times be within 2-3 seconds of each other, and already we can see that from the top 19, actually let's say the top 20, as the rest of the field continues to close in their times here as well. But with the Alpha Touring Challenge being a free-to-enter series for drivers, you get a plethora of drivers from all over the world, and particularly this one being the North American series, so in particularly North America, you will get a lot of different drivers from different backgrounds with different levels of experience coming into this series and just giving it a try and seeing what they can do. But I can tell you right now, it is a very tough field with a lot of great drivers, and not something you would go into expecting to win the first race. And if you do, I would be truly and woefully shocked. But Francois Schink showing that he is the man to beat at this moment and showing some great prowess at this point in time. So, Schink in Season 8, also a great performer, great driver, and continuing that here into Season number 9. Good to see that. But Micah Hendricks, there it is. The Alpha Champion, with a 238.607 as his time as he comes across the line. Edward Gorman puts himself into second for a moment, but Dan McFarlane entering himself into that second place spot, trying to see if he can wheel his way into that 238 region with 6 minutes left to go here in qualifying. Now, if we'll also take a look as well for our Delta Championship, excuse me, as I was, again, failing to find my words. Last season, Mike De Almeida came away with that Delta Championship. Eric Statzer in second place, and Trevor Lambert coming away in that third place position for the Delta Championship. And for those of you that don't know, that the Delta Championship is more or less for kind of the newer drivers to the series to also have something to compete for amongst themselves as well. So there's options for all drivers to compete for something, whether it be team championships, drivers championships, whatever the case might be. The option is always there. We're watching along with Edward Gorman, who currently sits into that third place spot. Another very, very strong driver in the series. In the season past, coming away in that third place position for the Alpha Championship. Just a mere 50, we'll call it 53 points. Something in that neighborhood. I could be wrong. I could be 43. I think it might be 43 points, actually. But needless to say, very close behind Micah Hendricks and Logan McKenzie with that as well. And Edward Gorman being a solo driver in the series, not competing with a team or for any team championship for that matter. He's only got one goal and one goal only, and that is competing for that Alpha Championship and a very close contender in season number 8. So we're going to be looking out for Edward Gorman throughout season 9 here as well, and seeing how he performs throughout this season here in season number 9. But a very exciting way to kick off season 9 with Virginia International Raceway, VIR for short. I think this is a great way to kind of really to have a field of this caliber, this size, as big as this track is. I think it is a very good way to start off the season. And Micah Hendricks, still the man to beat with a 238.607, and looking very good out there at the moment, and untouchable it seems like, with almost 0.6 of a second separating himself and Francois Schenk. And we'll see if Francois is gonna be able to pull something off here. His last time by, he was able to reel in that time a little bit down to that 238 or 239.2 that we currently see on the timing tower. So last time around he did get a slight improvement. Will he be able to do so this time around? Remains to be seen. He's just about a little over halfway through the track right now, so he's got a little bit of time left before he crosses that checkered line. Drivers currently seeing lap times of about 2 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll call it. So, as we can see on the left side of your screens, but point being here, it takes a little bit of time to make it all the way around this lengthy track. So, a lot of time that you kind of have behind the wheel before you make a full lap. And needless to say, it is also a lot of time where mistakes can and oftentimes will be made. So, and I don't think, if I recall correctly, I don't think I've ever raced this configuration of this track. I don't think I've ever had to go through the, I guess you could say, the infield portion of the track. I've always taken the long back straightaway. I've just now realized this, and that's why it looks so strange to me at first, but now that I'm aware of it, I've always wondered what that configuration looks like, and we get to find out together today. But for those of you that haven't that haven't raced this track, whether it be on the iRacing service or any other your simulator of choice, this is a very technical and very challenging track. If you are not experienced with it, if you are a newer driver to sim racing, this track will definitely put you through trials and tribulations, to say the least. But with 30 seconds left to go, I do not believe that anyone is going to be able to surpass Micah Hendricks in his very impressive 138.6. And it seems to be, well, he's only made 5 laps around, so we can't really go by that too much here, but I can't speak too much for this portion of the track, as I've never raced this configuration and have never been on this particular side of the track. I will say that if you are not careful about throttle management on this track, and if you're not careful about where you're placing yourself going into the next turn, so on and so forth, it is not forgiving in a lot of ways. And if you miss braking points, it will spit you right out into the field, and you are sliding for days. But there it is. The checkered flag has been waved. A lot of drivers just going to be making their final laps around and seeing if they are going to be able to improve upon their last time here. As we see Micah Hendricks come across, as we see Micah Hendricks come across the checkered line. And he actually improves his time by 0.3. Oh my. Micah Hendricks just on a tear here at Virginia. A 138.3. Francois Schink comes across the line. He's got an improvement, but only by 1/10 of a second. Not going to be enough to get up ahead of Micah Hendricks, but he's still starting on the front row along with Micah. And folks, I got to tell you, lap 1 of these races is always the most chaotic and also the most dangerous and the most likely for things to go sour for you. And especially here at Virginia, it could get dicey here very quickly. Turn 1 will, well, I have a feeling we're going to see some drivers go off into the grass, more than one at the very least, but we're going to have to wait and find out, as the rest of it looks like all but one driver has to finish out their lap here, and Micah Hendricks looks like he's just kind of cruising around here at this moment. Or he's actually still trying to... No, he's definitely not. He's just cruising. So while that happens, folks, while we just kind of patiently await for qualifying to officially end and for the starting grid to get displayed on our screens here, I just want to thank each and every single one of you who has tuned in here today so far, and for everyone who tunes in after the broadcast has completed. Big shout out, big thank you to all of you for making these broadcasts possible and for showing your support to your favorite drivers, your favorite league, whatever the case happens to be. And also big shout out and big thank you to the Alpha Touring Challenge for having us back on to cover season number 9. Big thank you. It has been a great pleasure to be here for these races and for season 8. and it's going to be awesome to be here for Season 9 and see what these guys have in store for us. As here goes Micah Hendricks down into pit road. He's going to bring it right down to his stall and get... Oh, he's going to give us a little mini burnout. Okay, I see you, Micah. I see you. Alrighty, folks. So, with that said, let's go ahead and get into our very lengthy starting grid. We only got 2 minutes to roll through this. Micah Hendricks, Dan McFarlane up in the front row. Edward Gorman, Francois Schink up in our second row. John Lazan, Logan McKenzie in the third row. Matt Zepka, Raymond 2 in our fourth row. Mike De Almeida, Damon Mitchell in our fifth row. David Bauer, James Carr in our sixth row. Moving on down the grid, Connor Roccatella, James Allen in our seventh row. Mark DeBauer, Jacob Wally in our eighth row. Eric Statzer, Jason Fryer in our ninth row. Brandon Lambert, Brian Saab in our 10th row. Robert Sharp, Mark Darnell in our 11th row. Kurt Smith and Landon Patmore in our 12th row. Moving on just a little bit further down the grid, Kevin Clark, Mark Crawford in our 13th row. Trevor Lambert, Zach Perry in our 14th row. Dom Savio, Luke Filippone in our 14th row. Kristen Ost and Brandon Sohn in our 15th row. 14th row. Jonathan Wenner and Jay Davis in our 15th row. Brian Inaki and Brian Ballard in our 16th row. And holy cow, Aaron Law and Corey Fluke in our 17th row, and Jimmy Powell rounding out the field in the 18th row. I don't think I've ever had to go past, I think, 14 rows, but wow. That was a doozy. Here we go. Lights are out, and away we go for the very first time here at Virginia International Raceway. As we try and keep up with the action throughout this field, the blimp camera gonna kind of be our friend here as we look up from above, trying to get the best view that we possibly can. And really good job from this field, keeping it clean, heading through turn one. And I take back what I said about things being a little dicey heading through turn one. These drivers doing a phenomenal job of keeping it clean here on the opening lap. Watching along with Damon Mitchell as he's going to be stuck to the outside, has to go right over the curb. Luckily able to keep it on the racing surface as he comes back over. The grass doesn't spin him out or do any weirdness to him. We can see drivers scrambling back here towards the tail end of the field as well, trying to go side by side with one another. Christian Ost goes out and away through the grass as he gets a side tap and tries to keep it together. But he's going to head right to the barrier, luckily able to spin it back around. Christian Ost definitely going to be a white-knuckled moment, but luckily this is not going to be a sprint feature format race. This is a full-on pedal-to-the-metal hour-long race. Folks, it is going to be a tough one, and already proving to be one as we've got two wide, two deep action. Zach Perry, Mark Crawford. Door to door there for a second, but they take it back single file. Everyone just trying to find some room on this track. In these sort of situations, it is definitely not easy to be completely aware of where all of the drivers are around you when there are 37 drivers that are on the track at this point in time. Brian Ballard going off track for a moment into the grass. Good recovery. Now going to have to find himself scrambling back with the rest of the field as we tune along with Damon Mitchell, the number 27 Audi. Edward Gorman up ahead, trying to find his way up to Micah Hendricks, who at the moment is just airing it out between himself and the rest of the field. And already an entry into pit road with Kurt Smith. The number 5 machine looking a little banged up there. Gonna have to get some damage repaired hopefully get back out onto track. 3 wide through turn 1. Kevin Clark, Dom Savio, and Mark Crawford. They all keep it nice and clean, and I'm honestly very impressed with how clean these drivers are keeping this race at the moment. And even looking at timing and scoring, there's not as many off-track situations as you would think, and a lot of the times as well, it's just iRacing just kind of picking up on the fact that you went over a curb or something along those lines, and it just registers it as an off-track moment. So there are certain situations where it's not exactly an indicator of someone doing something that's putting them in a predicament. It's more or less just them trying to take their racing line, and they're just going over the track limits just a little bit too much here. So we see Kevin Clark look to the outside of Brian Saab. Or excuse me, Dom Savio looking to the outside of Brian Saab. Mark Crawford looking to, well, almost getting into the rear end of Dom. Able to recover from it and keep himself in the mix of things in a very heated battle that's developing here for 23rd. Looks to the outside, Mark Darnell, the 77 machine. Going to be able to push his way up into that 24th spot here. As he gets a great entry there through the S's, and that's going to push Mark Crawford back about a half a second. It'll allow Dom Savio to continue to try and increase that gap. And speaking of gaps, Francois Schink in that second place position. We're watching along with Edward Gorman here at the moment, but between Edward Gorman and Francois Schink, or excuse me, Micah Hendricks, is 3.2 seconds. From third place to the lead is over 3 seconds at this point, and it's only the third lap of the race. Folks, I mean, Micah is just absolutely on a tear here today at Virginia, and whether or not he's going to be even close to touchable here tonight remains to be seen, but remaining on the field are plenty of battles that have been developing for quite some time. Zach Perry, Kevin Clark, Brian Saab among the mix here, and it looks like Brian Saab, I can actually make this a little bit easier for myself. So Brian Saab with Team 4OGs on the number 52 driver. I figured that was a team paint scheme. I just wasn't sure which one. But Team 4OGs consisting of Brian Saab, Brian Ballard, as well as Brian Inaki. I hope I'm saying that correctly, but I will have to clarify that after the race here tonight. As that battle kind of dissipates a little bit here, drivers just kind of focusing in, clicking off laps, and looking to stay consistent here. As 7 minutes into the race, it is a long time left to go before we see that checkered flag or even the white flag wave for that matter. And even when the white flag waves, that is probably going to feel like an eternity for a lot of these drivers here, because that is a long lap till the end. But surprisingly enough, things are staying relatively calm. I mean, we're still seeing drivers within 2, 3, 4 tenths of a second of each other, but for the most part, they're mainly focusing on just staying consistent here. Brian Ballard with Team 4OGs having a little bit of a moment here. Has to back up and recorrect himself, and I think I know exactly what he just did. Well, let's see what the instant replay has to say. I want to say he just drove right through thinking it just keeps going. 100%. Yup. He forgot that he was racing the other layout, and you know what? I would make that same exact mistake because, again, as I've mentioned already, this is not my usual layout that I do here for this track. And as we have a little bit of a hiccup here with our timing and scoring software not wanting to you give us one moment here. Well, folks, it seems like we had a little bit of a technical issue there. We seem to have got it fixed, luckily in the nick of time here, it seems like. But, whew, back to the racing. Raymond 2, Damon Mitchell, side by side here in a battle for 11th. As it dissipates very quickly going through the hairpin, Damon Mitchell going to stack up right behind the 996 of Raymond 2. See if he can stay along with Raymond as best as he can. Raymond 2 and Zach Perry both racing for Team Real Friends Racing. Currently, Raymond in that top 10, looking to try and secure even more points here for himself and for his team, if possible. Micah Hendricks at this moment for Team Curb Your Enthusiasm Autosport, just putting on a clinic here today and just looking very, very impressive here at Virginia. So really the guy to look out for. Really the guy that I think a lot of this field is hoping, or maybe not hoping, but looking to make a mistake here is going to be Micah. They're going to be hoping that he's going to make some kind of mistake to slow him down enough to catch him. Just enough here is Dan McFarlane. Big trouble here for Dan. Let's see if we can get a replay in of this one without it breaking anything. Oh, and a tap. Dan McFarlane gets pushed sideways. This isn't going to work, is it? Oh, jeez. All right, there we go. Well, Dan McFarlane getting a little sideways. I believe that was... Oh, boy. Was that... No. Who was that? I'm trying to... I know that paint scheme, the Spotify paint scheme, but I'm trying to remember who drives that car. I just can't remember off the top of my head who it is. Either way, not really important at this moment, as there are still battles developing all over the track at the moment. And one thing that I want to mention here as well, a lot of these drivers' times, let's actually take a look at that. On the left-hand side of your screens, you can take a look at that as well. We can see some other information that we'll pull up here in just a moment, but for the time being, you can see the last lap that drivers put in here and see what that time is. And Micah Hendricks, I mean, staying within that 238 region, granted just barely, but the rest of the field, we're looking at 239, 240 and beyond. And that just goes to show, you know, that 4/10 of a second that Micah has over the rest of the field is just propelling him forward throughout this race. So we can actually take a look at the difference between both Francois Schink and Micah Hendricks. We'll have to leave this up here for, there it is. So you can see the difference between the sectors for Micah Hendricks and Francois Schink. And I got to tell you, folks, that is not an easy thing to do, to consistently through each sector be almost a tenth of a second faster than your opponent, than your next fastest opponent. So Micah, again, just putting out a clinic here at Virginia. I don't know if he's a local here or if he is just put in a lot of races here or is just very comfortable here. Whatever the case might be, it is a good way to start his season. But Francois Schink, Edward Gorman, both coming into this season very strong here as well. So you got to give credit where credit is due. Francois Schink finishing ninth in the Alpha Championship last year, or not last year, but for last season, for Season 8. So coming in and finishing, or looking to finish in that top 3 for the first race of Season 9, I mean, definitely a great way to kind of open up your season and kick yourself off for, well, for the rest of it. So Raymond 2, James Carr, these two both going to be nearly neck and neck. Raymond 2 looks to go to the outside, door to door, as they head into the infield portion of the track, as I'm going to call it here. Raymond 2 within 0.2 of a second. And even further back beyond that, we've got even more action happening. The lights flashing from James Allen as he's trying to get around Robert Sharp. The chaos in the midfield is always some interesting action. Matt Zepka, the 490 Curb Your Enthusiasm machine, finding himself off in the grass. Making a quick recovery, but not without a little bit of a loss of position, a few spots that he has been down from. Now he's going to have to fight his way back up to, if at all possible. Jacob Wally here, right on the tail of Dan McFarlane. John Lasagna down in the pits. Gonna get a fresh set of tires as well as some fuel, I'd have to imagine. But I don't know about that 16 minutes into the race as we see Robert Sharp go off into the grass for just a moment, makes a swift recovery. Very close here from Robert Sharp, but again, he did a good job of getting himself back out on track. And for a moment here, I want to take a look on the nose camera here of James Allen. Just get a look here from the 117's perspective, at least from the front of the car's perspective. Almost as if the car had eyes, this is what it would see. Just great work there through the tight hairpin and staying right on the tail of the 999 machine of Robert Sharp. Great work here from James Allen. James Allen with Team Seattle iRacing also out here looking to put on a good performance. Currently sitting in that 15th place position, and I'd say out of the 39 drivers that we've had show up for today's race, finishing anywhere I would say anywhere in the top 15 is a great day. A great day for yourself and for your team. Watching here with Damon Mitchell as David Bauer getting a little close to the tail end there for a second. Showing in timing scoring that he was really reeling it in there for a moment, but keeping it calm and clean here. Just for a second here as well, we'll take a look at the dash cam, or well, not the dash cam, but the dashboard that you can see on the bottom right hand of your screen. You can see just how quickly these drivers are heading down the straights as well as through the turns. And see what gear they're in, just as an added bonus. Down into second gear, about 60 mile an hour through the right-hander. Damon Mitchell, David Bauer going to stay almost door-to-door with one another as they fight for that 8th place position, and Bauer's going to get out ahead of it all. Damon Mitchell's trying to stay as close as he can to the tail. Almost over 130 mile an hour through the S's. Now, while these aren't the fastest cars in the world of motorsports, I can tell you right now, they are some of the most fun ones. And at speeds like that, it's bound to tickle anyone's adrenaline junkie in them. Actually got a couple battles that have been developing back here in the back marker field between Landon Patmore and Christian Ost. Battle for 30th, coming down to just a few tenths of a second. Landon Patmore backing off there just a little bit, might have got set off his line there just a little bit, but he's going to try and recover from it, reel in Christian one more time. Keep up that battle. Landon definitely looks like he's got a little pep in his step and is looking to try and get in on some of that action. Mike De Almeida, the reigning Delta champion, fending off James Carr for that 5th place position. Mike isn't going to make that an easy pass, but it looks like he's not going to put too much of a fight up, as he was not in a great position there and didn't want to put himself off in the grass and make things worse for himself. Now he's going to have Raymond 2 on his tail, and James Carr is going to continue on his push further into the top 5 with Logan McKenzie, his next closest target, about 7 seconds separating those two drivers. "22 minutes in, things have been extremely calm and steady throughout this race, and out of the 39 drivers that registered into today's race, only 2 of which did not start the race. One has excuse me. I don't think anyone's retired from the race yet, actually. There's 2 down in the pits right now that are still getting repairs done, if they are getting repairs done. Aaron Law, Mark DeBauer, they've been in there since almost the start of lap 7, so they've been in there for a little while now. I'm not sure if they're going to make any attempt to get back out onto the track, but however, with that being said, 35 roughly drivers still out here, still turning laps. I would say this has been a fantastic turnout here for the Alpha Touring Challenge and has really kind of exemplified the name, or personified the name, I should say, the Alpha Touring Challenge. This is definitely a challenge for any driver of any level. And unless you're Micah Hendricks, then you're just, yeah, we don't talk about that. But anyway, not a diss on Micah Hendricks in any way or shape or form either. Micah doing an incredible job here tonight, but he's just in his own world, literally his own area code at this point. So he's just, yeah. Anyway, we'll get to Micah when he crosses the finish line. But for the rest of the field, they've got a lot of great battles developing and have been developing throughout this race. And have been exciting to watch and to try and cover as many of them as we can. This one that we're seeing now between Damon Mitchell and Connor Roccatella being one of the closest ones that we have currently, as things are kind of, you know, they kind of, it's like a wave. They come in and out here. Drivers will make a mistake or have a really good run, and next driver ahead of them will make a mistake. It's kind of a domino effect in some ways too, you can think of it. But ultimately, they're kind of coming in and out here with the battle, so you got to we've doing our best up here in the booth to keep an eye on all the things, all the happenings, and try and cover the most exciting ones of the mixtures here. Zach Perry and Kevin Clark that we're watching along with at this moment. The battle for 19th, coming down to just about 0.4 of a second. Just a little further ahead up in 13th, we have Jacob Wally, Eric Statzer, as well as James Allen. Looking to get in on some of the action here. Looking at the 11th place, or excuse me, no, the 12th place position. Statzer gets right to the tail of Statzer, excuse me, I'm scrambling on my words. Jacob Wally looking to fend off Matt Zepka as well as Robert Sharp. Here in that battle for 15th. Zepka's taking advantage of that draft, gets off into the grass. He got pushed off. He's flashing the lights here as well, letting him know that was not cool. And I don't think it was intentional. Maybe it was a little bit here. Maybe he was trying to squeeze him. But oh man, Zepka is definitely getting pushed around here a little bit, and he's going to have to really fight to keep himself up here in the top 15. Zepka comes down into pit road. Francois Schink, Edward Gorman, they're going to fight it out for that second place position as we close in on that halfway mark in today's race. Almost 30 minutes into this event here at Virginia International Raceway. And folks, it has been an exciting race thus far and continues to get even more exciting as things go on. But once we get pit stops done and sorted, it'll be interesting to see where drivers kind of end up and lie and see what kind of battles they're going to find themselves in. And especially coming out on new tires, a slightly warmer track here as well. We can take a look at that on the right-hand side of our screens. It's actually a perfect day for racing in the grand scheme of things. 72 degrees Fahrenheit. as the ambient temperature. So t-shirt weather, you know, wearing shorts, you are absolutely comfortable out there. And 84 degrees is the current track temperature. So not exactly the hottest track out there, but also not the coldest one. So I would say it is pretty much ideal for racing. And these drivers are clearly taking full advantage of that, as again, we're not seeing a whole plethora of mistakes being made. Most drivers staying relatively consistent. I mean, we're having a couple hiccups here and there, but frankly, if anyone's been around the iRacing service long enough and has been around, has raced here at Virginia, that's just Virginia. Nothing new. Meanwhile, Dan McFarlane, Connor Roccatella, they're going to keep the battle up. Well, excuse me, David Mitchell and Dan McFarlane keeping the battle up for that 9th place position. Connor Roccatella closing himself in on that battle. Oh, and here it is. David Mitchell gets kicked sideways, and through the grass he goes. That's going to put him down a couple spots. Man, and look at Eric Statzer. He didn't, or who was that? That was not, is that Brian Ballard? I think that was Brian Ballard, actually, that did that. Riding the rev limiter there for a minute, but very good sportsmanship there from Brian, if that was Brian. I think it was. Slowing up and making sure that he had time to recover from that one. But man, oh man, Damon Mitchell definitely going to be kicking himself after that one, and he's going to come down into the pits after that. He is not going to keep out on those same sets of tires, because it's not going to be an easy one if he does. In which, clearly making that decision very quick for himself, opting to come down into pit road and get that fresh set of tires sorted out. Meanwhile, Francois Schink and Edward Gorman, they continue their fight for 2nd place. And Francois, again, I mean, after finishing 9th last season and coming here and starting off strong, holding on to this 2nd place spot well into the halfway mark of today's race, it's a testament to Francois and his ability here in this series. Definitely has shown great improvement since the last time that we covered a race here with the Alpha Touring Challenge, and to come out here tonight and hold on to a 2nd place spot. Still got halfway of the race left to go, a whole 29 minutes, 28 and a half minutes left to go before the checkered flag is waved, but he's looking strong and confident at this moment. He's got Edward Gorman right on his tail, giving him quite the run for his money, but he's still not letting it get too much into his head, staying calm, staying consistent, and that is his focus at this point in time. And big moves here, Kevin Clark, Zach Perry, both going side by side with one another for a moment, and Clark goes off into the grass as he catches the curb, and that's going to kick him right off into the grass. He goes off for a ride and down a couple positions. And just like that, folks, you know, the slightest mistake here at Virginia can cost you majorly if you're not careful, and unfortunately for Kevin Clark, he just found that out the hard way. Robert Sharp coming down into pit road to get his pit stop done and over with. Luke Filippone, Raymond 2, they're going to keep duking it out here as they come across the checkered line. Excuse me, John Lazan in Raymond 2. I thought that was Luke for a moment, but never mind. I stand corrected. John Lazan going to take it to the inside. However, with that number 39 machine showing the 77 in timing and scoring. So that's going to throw me off, but we'll keep with it. A lot of the tail end of the field having made their pit stops already. Now the focus is going to lean in on those in the top 20 and beyond, as they are the ones remaining to have to make their pit stops here. And oh, Connor Roccatella definitely getting a little loosey-goosey here. Potentially an effect of that tire wear being a contributing factor, as it does not look like an easy car to hold on to right now. Dan McFarlane definitely putting the pressure down, but not as much as one would think. I think Connor is definitely just is fighting a very slidey car right now, with not a whole lot of rubber to keep him on the track. Francois Schink, he is going to be amongst the first of the leading class, or not class, but the top 10, I should say, to come down into pit road. Dan McFarlane, we just saw just behind Connor Roccatella here, make that decision here as well, as we tune into Dom Savio, John Lazan in the battle for 18th. Lazan pushing it as best as he can. Gets up on the curb there for just a second. Doesn't slow him down too much. Whoa! 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 Where did that go? Dom Savio. What in the world? He definitely got a little bit of a push there. I think that was from Dan. Or somebody. That might have been John, actually. John, or I can't remember now, but either way, I'm just in shock at that. That is just not what you want to have happen here. Okay, folks, as we're starting to experience a little bit of technical issues here. Looks like it seems to us to have corrected itself, thankfully. So now that a lot of the field has made their way down through pit road, much of the battles that we've seen throughout this race have started to dissipate. Again, with Virginia being as large as it is, and Trevor Lambert-Lee and Francois Schink, they're both going to duke it out here for that 10th place position. But again, back to my point with this track being as large as it is, you can find, well, we can take a look at that here. You can see on the right-hand side of your screen, even with over 30 drivers in the race, there can still be quite a bit of distance separating them. And that is what we're starting to see as we start to enter into the final 20 minutes of the race here tonight. even while drivers have gotten a little bit separated from one another, Brian Sohn, Landon Patmore, they find themselves in a little bit of a battle for 29th here at the moment, and Raymond, too, for just a second, finds himself in a little bit of a predicament there, but luckily found himself back onto the racing surface as we tune to Luke Philippone and Mark Crawford. Crawford looks to stay right into the tail of Luke as best as he can, mimicking that line as closely as he can, also looking to stay in that draft. But with how twisty and bendy this track can be, it's tough to stay exactly behind the driver ahead of you. Try and utilize that draft that these cars are so good at producing. But this long straightaway here providing just enough to reel in that driver ahead of you. Mark Crawford looks to the inside and realizes he's not going to have it. Backs off, going into the right-hander. But while we have a moment here, let's actually take a moment to ride on board with Mark Crawford and just appreciate a lap on board here at Virginia International Raceway and enjoy the sights and sounds here for the Alpha Touring Challenge for season number 9, race number 1. That was a look on board with Mark Crawford chasing along with Luke Philippone, the number 11 driver, holding on to 22nd at this point in time. And Mark Crawford able to keep this battle within just a couple tenths of a second. Mike De Almeida just a little further ahead. The battle for 8th place. Raymond 2 looks to the inside, able to take that spot. Mike De Almeida now going to have to put himself into an offensive position. Virginia offering plenty of opportunities for passing. This is definitely the place to test your passing prowess. Again, Mike De Almeida coming away with that Delta Championship from last season. Looking to capitalize on that momentum here tonight. Try and push his way even further up the top 10. But for the reigning Delta champion, come in and finish in the top 10 of the first race with nearly 40 drivers in the field, I think Mike's going to be feeling A-okay with himself here tonight. 15 minutes left to go before we see the checkered flag wave tonight. We wrap things up. A lot of things can still happen before that time. But for the time being, it looks to be that Micah Hendricks continuing to put on an absolute clinic, as no one has been able to reel in the 473 driver and try and give him something to fight with here in this race. Virginia definitely seeming to be one of the more comfortable tracks in Micah Hendricks' kind of arsenal, I suppose you could say. And again, as a lot of the field has separated to the point where there's not a whole lot of, well, there's a lot of time separating themselves and the next driver ahead of them. It makes things a little bit more challenging to kind of put yourself into a battle situation. But for the battles that are developing, they have been quite exciting nonetheless, as we have James Allen off into the grass, and that's going to allow Eric Statzer to just drive it right on by. And a single mistake, a little dip into the grass is all it took for James Allen to lose that 12th place spot. We tune back to 19th, where Mark Darnell fending off Kevin Clark. Here as we come across the checkered line, heading off into turn 1. Mark Darnell starting to come under fire a little bit from Kevin Clark, as Kevin starts to reel in the gap. Looking rather on fire here at the moment as well. We ride along with Mark Darnell, looking out the rear view. They're out of the tail, I should say. Out of the hairpin onto the long straightaway, we see the front end of Kevin Clark's 89 machine. Gonna get hot on the brakes here. Let's see how brave Kevin's gonna be. He's gonna back off just a little bit. Very good work through the hairpin, as Kevin Clark stays right on the tail of Mark Darnell. Mike D'Almeida, Dan McFarlane, side by side, or at least for a moment. Mike able to stay out ahead as just a few seconds remaining before we see that 10-minute marker. But even though it's only 10 minutes left till the checkered flag, it still will be a little bit of time before everyone completely crosses the checkered line. So there's still quite a bit of time left. And with that time dwindling, some drivers trying to push as best as they can, others just looking to focus and click off laps. However, Luke Filippone, Mark Crawford, they continue their battle here, as they have been for some time. The battle for 22nd been going on for a little while now. Luke Filippone able to retain his spot. And with now under 10 minutes left to go to the checkered flag, all he's got to do is focus on consistency. He will come away with that 22nd place finish, 8 spots ahead of where he started here tonight, so will be an excellent finish here for Luke. But the current hardest charger of the race stands to be Trevor Lambert, who moved up 11 spots from where he started here today in 27th up into 16th here at the moment. So Trevor looking to have a fantastic night for himself, as moving up double digits from where you started is always going to be a great feeling, especially on the road courses. Tom Savio reporting back that we've got a bit of an incident here with the 81 machine, and I don't think there was an incident here. I think he made the mistake that we saw another driver make earlier on. Just forgot that the turn existed there. Mark Crawford has definitely been giving Luke a lot of pressure. Going into the last roughly 8 minutes of this race, Mark Crawford definitely turning up the heat as we get closer and closer to that checkered flag, and looks to the outside heading into turn number 1. Isn't going to be able to make that move happen. Turn 1 definitely, switching it up, goes to the inside. Mark doing a fantastic job carrying all that momentum to stay right on the heel of Luke. Tuning back over to Mike D'Almeida and Dan McFarlane as well, as they continue to have a solid battle themselves. John Lazan looks to be coming down into pit road with roughly 6 minutes left to go, just under 6 minutes left until the checkered flag. I'm not sure if this was a intended pit stop or if there's another reason behind it, but meanwhile, Mike De Almeida, Connor Occatella, Dan McFarlane, excuse me, continue to fight it out here, but Dan McFarlane, the one able to get out ahead of Mike De Almeida after quite the battle for some time. John Lazan, a quick exit from pit road back out onto track. I wonder if he had to serve a drive-through or something of those along those lines. Bauer, Raymond too, among some of the battles developed, or the last remaining battles that have developed here, and with just about 4 minutes left to go, this is the last, well, not the last, but we're coming down to the last chance for these drivers to really try and pull something off for themselves here. No one's going to be making any major gains, but at the very least they can try and gain one more position if they can, but it is going to require, oh, here it is, David Bauer, I believe coming up to the tail of lap traffic here. And lap traffic going to go right through the grass, trying to avoid the drivers on the lead lap. Does so successfully, but wow, that was definitely a nerve-wracking moment for drivers, for all parties involved. And I wasn't even involved in it, and I was nervous. Raymond too, trying to give it everything he's got. He's in that 7th place position at the moment, but he is looking to improve that. Dan McFarlane getting right up to the tail of Raymond too as well. And for Dan McFarlane, if things play out in his favor, he could get up to 2 positions here. Well, that action is developing back there. Mark Darnell, Kevin Clark, the battle for 19th. They go side by side along with one another. Looking for a bit of action themselves. But so far in the top 10, the battle for 6th place is the hottest one on the track. With David Bauer doing everything he can to fend off these two behind him. We look out the tail of the 35 machine just to get an idea of what these guys are doing behind him. Oh, a big dive here from Dan McFarlane, or excuse me, from Raymond too. Looks to the inside of David Bauer. Bauer still gonna have the advantage heading into the left-hander. Through the S's, oh, Raymond a little slide there. He's able to recover from it. Dan McFarlane just trying to keep himself in the mix here. intense action developing between these drivers, and I was trying to figure out math there for a second to figure out if these drivers were going to have enough time to come across the line for one more lap, or if this is going to be it for themselves. 15 seconds left to go. Raymond 2 and David Bauer, Dan McFarlane as well, they're going to have another lap to take it around the track here, but oh, Raymond 2 to the inside, Bauer looks to the outside, heading into turn 1 and into turn 2. It's a lot of throttle control and brake control as well. Raymond 2 doing a fantastic job trying to keep himself to the inside of David Bauer. Gets a little bit too close to the edge. Has to back off and still holding on to that 7th place spot. Dan McFarlane right on the heel of that number 996. Just 0.2 of a second separating these two drivers. The clock has expired. This will be the last time they make it around the track here today. But still a long way left to go to the checkered line. And a lot can happen from now till then. Staying right on the tail of David Bauer. David gonna try and hold on to this 6th place position. Oh, David possibly a little bit of a mistake there. Raymond 2 doing a fantastic job avoiding contact. They snake their way through the S's, and Connor Roccatella comes to join in on some of the action here as well. With Micah Hendricks coming across the line, he will be our race winner. We are still watching the action here for 6th place as they still have a ways to go to make it across before they cross the checkered line. Edward Gorman, Francois Schenk, your 2nd and 3rd place drivers, finishing out their race here today. And out of the final turn, it is Raymond 2, Dan McFarlane. Raymond going to be the one out ahead. Dan McFarlane going to try and take it side by side, and they finish with mere 0.1 of a second separating them. You can see that on the left-hand side of your screen, actually 0.2 of a second between these two drivers. An absolutely photo finish. And speaking of, Matt Zepka, John Lazan, not quite as close, but still a great finish from these two drivers, and still a couple battles, still a couple battles left out on track before we officially call this one done and dusted. Mark Darnell, Kevin Clark, they're going to make their way out of the final turn here as well. Mark Darnell coming away with 19th, Kevin Clark in 20th. So with only a few drivers remaining to come across the checkered line and finish this one out here today, for the most part, the unofficial results are on the left-hand side of your screens, but we will pull up the big results here in just a second. Once we have verified the remainder of the field has made their way across the line here. But with that being said, folks, wow, what an absolutely incredible race. I mean, it was a great way to kick off race number 1 for the Alpha Touring Challenge. I think it was expected that there was going to be quite the stacked field for race 1. And Virginia is a great track to kind of host a field of that size. So I think this is a good way to kick off the first race of the season. And with that being said, let's get into our post-race results, which are on our screen now, and get into some post-race interviews. The first driver that we're going to have up here in the booth, kind of going out of order here, but we're going to start with Logan McKenzie, who finished in 4th place, but is the man responsible for putting these events on and for making all of this happen. So, Logan, welcome to the booth. Congratulations on a 4th place finish here tonight. And what a fantastic way to kind of kick off the first race of season 9. I mean, this was an absolute killer of a race and a lot of great action that happened throughout it. Logan, I mean, kind of what was your expectations coming into tonight, and what was kind of your goal for your team, you think?
Survival. I'm sure, as you can see from this layout, not only is there a lot of grass everywhere, but we've tacked on like a whole new track inside of VIR. So it required a lot of concentration. It's almost 3 minutes each time in between each time you come around, so you don't get to practice each turn very much. We were definitely just looking for a solid start to the season, and I think we got that. I myself didn't have the pace to challenge for podium. I think I finished where I deserved. Maybe I could have jumped Francois in the pits if I had had a better couple laps prior. But I don't really blame myself for the lapses in concentration. First race back, it's a tough track for sure.
Well, Logan, and to touch on the fact that you the whole new track in of itself, I didn't even know that layout was a thing until I looked at it a little closelier, and I was like, wait a second, that's just the straightaway, and it just okay. And once it clicked, once the light bulb turned on in my brain, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So it's kind of a learning experience for myself up here in the booth, just figuring out how all of that was laid out. But once it kind of clicked for me, it was really fun to see how everyone was tackling this track. And me personally, I've raced here only a handful of times, but and on the more traditional layout, I guess you could say. But every time I've raced here, I always contemplate quitting sim racing after racing here because of how challenging this track can be sometimes. And maybe it's just the grass. I don't know what it is. But either way, moving on, Logan, we had a fantastic start to the season, and moving on into next week, where we head to, where do we go? Watkins Glen, and kick off the second round. How are you feeling after tonight, and what do you look forward to for next week?
I look forward to not having to think about any of the corners next week. We're running. It's going to be total opposite. We're running the NASCAR or the old NASCAR layout, so it's like 8 corners total. Totally different from this. It's going to be all about the racecraft. Going to be fighting each other instead of the track. Very different race. So very much looking forward to it.
Well, I know I certainly am, Logan, and I certainly look forward to seeing you out there next week, as well as your team, Yellow Flag Motorsports. But before we let you go, before you get to celebrating with your team and fellow drivers, anyone you want to give a shout out to and thank before you go tonight?
I'll just take a moment to thank everybody who showed up tonight. Our league record is 40 drivers. We got 39. We might still have set a record for most drivers to finish a race, so proud of everyone who raced today. Tough track, so great to have that happen here.
Yeah, for how difficult this track is, having 39 drivers show up, I was shocked, needless to say. But Logan, thank you again for joining me up here in the booth, and I always appreciate your time. And hopefully we get to talk to you again next week, and hopefully get some good luck next week at Watkins Glen.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a good night. Alrighty, folks. So that was Logan McKenzie out of the booth, coming away with 4th place here tonight. Up next, we are going to talk to 2nd place driver, Mr. Edward Gorman. And Edward, I think this might be, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time that we've actually gotten a chance to talk to you up here in the booth.
This season, but it's the first race of the season.
That's good point. Fair enough. Anyway, Edward, you put on a strong performance here tonight. You came away with that 3rd place spot in the Alpha Championship at the end of Season 8 last season. So, coming into this season, the first race, and honestly, a very difficult first race of the season, coming in strong, finishing out in that 2nd place spot. How are you feeling after tonight?
I'm feeling like I learned the track pretty fast. I've driven here before in a few other races, but yeah, the infield is so different from the rest of the track.
And I just got done talking to Logan, and I said the same thing. I didn't even know this part of the track existed until we started getting into qualifying, and I was like, wait a second, this doesn't track with what I remember. And then it finally clicked with me, and I was like, oh, well, that's what that part of the track looks like. So anyway, it was a learning experience for myself, and I'm sure it was probably a learning experience for a lot of you out there on the track. But for yourself, Ed, you had a fantastic performance, and looking forward to next week, heading to Watkins Glen, an opposite kind of experience that we're going to have for Watkins Glen. What's kind of your goal heading into next week, knowing that it's going to be a little bit of an easier sort of layout than what we had here today?
Yeah, I think it's going to feel more like a speedway race instead. I think the first goal is to survive and start looking at passing people.
I think that's a solid goal to have, Ed, and I think it's an excellent night here for yourself, and hopefully get to continue that streak moving into next week and really throughout the rest of the season. But Ed, before you celebrate with your fellow drivers, fellow friends, anyone you want to give a shout out to and thank before you go tonight?
Yeah, I just like to thank everyone for running the series. It's fun to be able to just come in here week in and week out and just have a really good, longer race.
Absolutely. Well, Ed, I want to thank you for your time and joining me up here in the booth. It's always a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you. Good luck to you next week, and hopefully get to talk to you again next week at Watkins.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a good one. Alrighty, folks. So that is Edward Gorman out of the booth, coming away with 2nd place. Last and certainly not going to be least, Micah Hendricks, the reigning champion from Season 8, back here, off to an incredible start. Micah, I mean, we didn't even really get a chance to cover you all that much in this broadcast. I'm going to be totally honest with you, because you were just in your own little world out there today. I mean, is this Virginia just somewhere you go to often? Do you just race here, just in your sleep? Like what's going on here?
Well, I couldn't really tell you. I think that this style of track, without a lot of I don't know. I think this track just really suits the Audi and had a good setup. I think these types of turns really suit me. A little bit tighter, a little bit more aggressive in, and then holding that trail brake until you start that rotation. So I think it was a combination of really good setup in the Audi and the aggressive nature going through those chicanes in the middle. You could cut those more than you thought, and if you cut it the right way, it was worth half a second. So I think it's just a function of I figured that out and was able to consistently replicate it.
Well, Micah, for yourself and for your team, Curb Your Enthusiasm, you guys are off to a fantastic start. And looking next week, heading to Watkins Glen, I mean, it seems like that's going to be an even easier kind of track to head to. So, I mean, looking forward to next week, and realistically, just for this season, kind of give me the ultimate goal. You're the champion. You're the reigning champion. You're the one with the target on your back as far as, the guy to look out for. What's kind of the big goal? What's the big picture here for yourself and for your team?
I think that, obviously big goal is to win the championship again with Curb Your Enthusiasm, but this time with a little bit different car and one that's not necessarily seen as the strongest of the bunch over generalization. But then also a little side goal is to help. We got a new team member, Mark Darnell. He had a really good first outing. So I think a good goal for me is to help him improve and see if we can wrap up both Alpha and Delta championships and obviously go for the team. So I think how we're going to do that is just consistency, avoiding those incidents, and maximizing podiums when you can get them.
Yeah, 100%. And this goes for not only yourself and for your team, but for the rest of the field. I mean, it was very impressive out there as far as incidents were concerned. I mean, obviously, Virginia is going to produce a lot of kind of off-track moments and things of that nature. But as far as drivers getting into one another, things along those lines, I would say this was a very, very good example of just how good the drivers in this series are. So it's really refreshing to see, 30-plus drivers on a track that are all in the same mindset of, we're all going to put on a good race. We're not going to try and just go out there and just ruin other people's race. But went off on a little bit of a tangent there, Micah, but I want to just give you and the rest of the field a big shout-out for what you guys do and for the level of racing that you guys put on, because it's always fun to watch and fun to commentate over. But Micah, before you crack open that cold one that I know is sitting in your fridge right now, anyone you want to give a shout-out to or thank before you go tonight?
I think kind of tapping on what you said, just shout out to everybody showing up. A lot of new faces out here tonight. From just really good to see some new names up there. A couple of them had some good races. It looks like Brian Saab, James Allen, top Tony finishes for both of them. So I guess just shout out to the grid, and then shout out for Logan for making ATC a thing season in and season out. So I think those are my two, and then shout out to you for keeping track of 37 cars on the grid. I'm sure that was a little bit of a mess. So as just shout out to you for managing that, and appreciate watching them every week.
Absolutely, it's always my pleasure. I love being here. Micah, it's always a pleasure to get to talk to you and to watch you every single week. It's always great to see what you have in store for us every single week. But Micah, I look forward to seeing you next week at Watkins Glen, and hopefully we get to talk to you again there.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Have a good one.
You as well. Thank you much.
Yeah, bye.
Alrighty, folks, so that is Micah Hendricks out of the booth and with the win here tonight at Virginia International Raceway as we end out race number 1 of the Alpha Touring Challenge, season number 9. That is going to do it for us here tonight, folks. As always, my name is Mason Heimbaugh with Team Goon Squad, bringing you the action here tonight. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Catch all the action that we have here on Team Goon Squad throughout the week. Lots of racing happening almost every single day, so there is always something to watch if you are looking for some motorsport action to satisfy your needs. But anyway, folks, if you want to support Team Goon Squad, you can head on over to teamgoonsquad.com, pick up some merchandise, head on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/teamgoonsquad. You can head on over to our Discord as well, become part of our free-to-enter Cup Series or our Endurance Series. And if you want to get in on something a little more spicy than that, you can also check out our Super Speedway Series, where a little bit of cash prizes divvied out, and it can be some great, great fun times. But if you also want to get in on some touring car action and get in on a fantastic series, the Alpha Touring Challenge is a free-to-enter series, and you can find more information down below in the description, where you can join in and race for yourself and see where you fare against some of the best drivers in the touring cars in North America. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you all same time, same place next week at Watkins Glen. Thank you all. See you next time.
Oh, Pearson gets into the 95 of Folks. Here comes the caution.
Flag is dropped here at Daytona, and away we go for the first time. Nicholas Morcel, Sean Rose.
looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Dom's, possibly a little bit of contact.
Now as we've got 3 wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Let's go out here for Circuit Spa Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
Just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the 1-on-1 up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, Justin Sang.
They are ready to go. The lights are out, and away we go for the very first time here at Okayama International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons.